You're listening to the Why That Work podcast presented by Storybrand.ai. If you've ever wondered why certain brands, trends, or cultural phenomena find success while others don't, you're in the right place. Every week we unpack why something worked, then give you actionable insights that you can use in your own life. Now let's dive in with your hosts, Donald Miller and Kyle Reed.
Today we're kicking off a brand new segment we're calling Pass or Fail. These are rapid fire takes. I'm going to ask you, Don, to give a pass or fail grade. And then we're going to get into your answer and the reason why.
On messaging?
Yes. And what we've learned about in messaging is that any message campaign can either break trust, break sales, reputation, but it can also grow your brand.
Or just be ignored.
Yes. But also when you get it right, it's super powerful. Yep. Sometimes you make big choices in your messaging that pays off, and sometimes it sinks.
And here's what everybody's going to get out of it. They're going to be able to apply this to their messages pretty easily.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So let's get into the game. Don, recently the NFL draft took place, and there was a hot topic. There was a hot topic. Seahawks, that is. I don't think maybe the audience
Hawks.
Isn't up. They're not insiders like
the Atlanta
you. Like,
Falcons.
Hawks. Yeah, the Seahawks.
The Seahawks.
Of sorts, go Rams. And so there was a big kind of narrative that was taking place over the NFL draft. First off, did you watch the NFL draft?
I watched a little bit.
Okay.
I watched like clips mostly.
Yes. So the big topic of conversation was one in particular player by the name of Shedeur Sanders.
Yeah.
Quarterback out of Colorado.
Yep. Deion
Sanders' son. And the narrative.
Good effective quarterback.
Very good. Yeah.
College.
One of the top college quarterbacks,
Almost
I would
got him
say.
to the playoffs.
Absolutely. But the narrative that started to develop after day one was this guy's dropping in the draft. Where is he going?
I think there were 4 quarterbacks who went ahead of him.
Yeah. And I think
he was probably anticipated to be maybe second, maybe the third quarterback, and I think he was 5th, but 144th in the draft.
Picked. Yeah. I mean, Mel Kiper, who's like one of the leading experts, had him as his number 1 quarterback.
Wow.
So for him to drop that far was obviously a lot of controversy. So, Don, pass or fail Shedeur Sanders and how he handled
that
himself.
One's easy. I mean, based on what we just said.
But how he handled himself in
if you play the clip, if you just that one clip that got
did not help him.
Promoted or whatever, it didn't help him at all. Let's just play that clip.
That's the plan. If that's not what you're trying to do, don't get me. If you ain't trying to change the franchise or the culture, don't get me. So you should know history repeats itself over and over and over, and I've done it over and over and over, so it should be no question why an NFL franchise should pick me.
Certainly he was coached on how to do this, and somebody told him, in my opinion, somebody told him that you've got to be cocky, you got to be arrogant because it's associated with confidence, and the team leader needs to be confident and cocky, and that's gonna boost you up in the draft and make you worth more. I think that's probably what happened because that's such a huge screw up.
Yeah.
All right. First of all, let's just look at this from an owner's perspective, a general manager's perspective, and a coach's perspective. If you're not trying to change the culture, don't pick me. Okay, first of all, what does that mean? Right? Change the culture. How? And also, that's not your job. Your job is not to create a culture. That's not your job.
Yeah.
Your job is to come into a culture.
Yes.
Now, you're probably going to affect that culture, but the general manager is basically hearing somebody say, I'm going to take your job, and I'm going to do your job. That's a really dumb thing to say. The other thing is, it's so vague. Let's just change it a little bit to where it works. If you're not trying to create a culture of optimism and a culture of winning and a culture of sacrifice, don't choose me.
That's
right.
Totally different.
That's the difference between vague and telling me what I'm going to get.
Mm-hmm.
It's also the difference between saying, I'm going to benefit your culture. Listen, people will say that Sanders dropped to the 4th or 5th round, 144th in the draft, that he dropped because of his arrogance. He didn't drop because of his arrogance. He dropped because of his selfishness.
Yeah.
This guy's a diva. This guy's going to be trouble. This guy is all about himself. this guy wants control. This guy's a narcissist. Not worth it. Not worth the risk. And he could have, with words, he could have mitigated all of that damage.
Yeah.
Right? All of that damage. For instance, instead of saying, everybody knows history repeats itself, you've seen me, again, undefined. So if you would have said, look, I have a history of creating a cohesive team that gets behind me. And the way you do that is you have their backs and they have my back. And any team that I go to, they're going to figure out really quick, I'm going to take a bullet for you if you're wearing the same jersey as me. Number 2, number 3, number 4 in the
Agreed.
draft.
Yep, absolutely.
Like it's just, because now you go, this guy isn't a problem.
Yep.
This guy's an asset.
Yep.
For instance, if you would have said, any team that is not really genuinely committed to winning a Super Bowl and to filling up 5-6 consecutive seasons of sold-out games, if you aren't committed to that, I beg of you, pass me up. Just pass me. And you know who you are. Pass me up. I want to win Super Bowls.
Yep.
I want to go into a town and have kids say, you're my hero.
Yep.
And, that it's just a different way. What he's saying is, I'm a badass, instead of saying, I'm going to make you a badass.
Yeah. Yeah. Difference between individual versus team.
That's right.
Yeah.
And everybody knows this is a team sport.
Yeah. It's interesting. They do all this prep for the draft, right? Practice their 40, bench, throw, all the things that they've got to do to get ready. It sounds like they also should be doing messaging campaign training.
Well,
but it's
yeah,
true.
And listen, he got some bad sound bites in there,
Yes.
and somebody coached him. I don't think somebody said, this is the attitude you got to have.
Yeah.
And I agree. I think, look, being cocky and confident and even to some degree arrogant, that's probably decent advice, but about what?
Yeah, your team, not...
It's about the
yes.
ability to deliver some piece of value to the general manager, to the coach, to the fans in the stands, to all of that.
Yes. And living into our tagline for this podcast where we give some business thoughts, I actually think, if you think about, we've all been with those brands who have kind of almost like they're apologizing for what they sell,
right.
But then we've also been with the ones who are so arrogant and so over the top that you can tell it's about the person or it's about, their ego. I think there's a fine line here where you can come in as it's about the customer, but we're confident in the solution we offer.
Yeah.
And I think so many people get one of those right. They don't get both often. When you can get both right, as far as going, we are here to serve you.
Yep.
And the solution we have is what you need.
Okay, you didn't ask me, but let me give another fail.
Okay.
That is akin to this.
Yeah.
And that is Katy Perry going to space.
Yeah. I love this one.
Right.
First of all, air quotes.
First of all,
air quotes if it happened.
First of all, let me just confess, I really like Katy Perry.
Yeah.
I think she's just a fun human being. Her songs are catchy. I think, it's unfortunate that some sound bites, got out there. Probably very similar to Sanders in the sense it's probably a fun hang, like a really good person.
Yeah.
And so, but everybody can redeem themselves. But the way that those talking points came out was, I had an experience you'll never have.
Mm-hmm.
You don't understand the world until you've seen it from space. How many of us are going to see the world from space? None of us. And it became about, instead of, this was an honor. And I got to tell you, it made me feel really small.
Mm.
And you can be a pop star and be the king of the world and realize this isn't about me. And it's the experience that I had. And this makes me actually want to serve the world and do my little bit before I die.
Yeah.
And it's a perspective that I'll never forget. And I'm very, very thankful that
Mm-hmm.
I was given this. I certainly didn't deserve it, but I'm coming back feeling smaller than I've ever felt in my life.
Yeah.
Everybody falls in love with Katy.
Yes,
Everybody's already in love with Katy Perry, but everybody falls in love with her even more.
Yeah. And, for the purposes of this new segment, pass or fail, it feels like when you play the hero, you fail. When you
make it about you, you fail.
Yep.
Unless you make it about you delivering value to somebody else. And you can be cocky and you can be arrogant and you can do that all day long.
Yes.
But you're delivering. I am unbelievably confident that I can deliver value to you.
Yep.
Unbelievably confident that I can deliver value to you.
Yep.
And I think that sort of confidence is fine.
Yeah. Okay, so topic number 2, pass fail using provocative brand messaging.
Provocative brand messaging.
So using provocative words, and let me give you a couple of
The
examples.
F word?
Maybe. I knew you. That's the funny thing is I know you well enough. I knew that's immediately
Because that is actually a whole episode we
There's-
could do on do you cuss or not.
Yeah, yeah. And there's I actually just got a book the other day where they use the F word in the title. I think for the provocative nature of it, you know. Okay, so let me give you a couple examples. So Liquid Death. Have you heard of Liquid Death?
Yes.
The drink. Their tagline is "Murder your thirst." Patagonia says, "Don't buy this jacket." Cards Against Humanity says, "A party game for horrible people." So breaking messaging rules using provocative language in your messaging, pass or fail?
Listen, I've got to be brutally honest here. I would have given Liquid Death a fail, but I'm obviously wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm admitting that.
Okay.
I'm not, well, they won, so let me say why.
Fail from their messaging or fail from the name and product idea?
To me, first of all, I'm a 53-year-old man who wants to live to be 90. So Liquid Death is not interesting to me. So maybe I'm not the target
enticing.
market for this. So let's give it a nuanced review. In terms of standing out in the market and sort of competing against Red Bull, fantastic.
Yep. Pass.
In terms of kids riding around on their BMX bike trying to do backflips, pass.
Yeah.
Which is, arguably their target market. What was shocking to me is like I saw somebody drinking it. Or no, they had it. I think I was on a podcast and they had like, you want a Liquid Death? I didn't realize it's like tea.
Yeah, exactly. It's like water, right?
Like, like why is this called Liquid Death?
Yeah.
I don't understand. It was actually confusing to me.
Yeah.
And so, I would have given it a fail, but obviously it was so provocative. Willie Nelson used to say, don't read your press, weigh it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is in the age of newspapers and magazines. And what he was saying is just make sure they're talking about you.
Yep.
And I think I would have to give them, certainly in hindsight, a massive pass in grade A on just getting attention.
Mm-hmm.
And then, a little bit of a fail on involving the nuance of your actual drink. And I thought it was Red Bull on steroids, like Red Bull that's going to make your heart beat, So that's where I just go. But, listen, I'm not the target market. In hindsight, I think what everybody can learn here is bringing attention to your brand, adding some drama.
Mm-hmm.
Drama is really, really good.
Yes.
And they did an effective job bringing attention to the brand. What was the other one? Liquid Death, and then what else did you
Cards
say?
Against Humanity was a party game for horrible people.
Love it.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Love it. It's very, even I would be like, no, that's a pretty fun differentiator.
Yep.
Identifying the fact that this is going to be an interesting night.
Yeah.
And it's going to kind of bring out the worst in us, just says entertainment.
Yep.
And not surprising that worked at all.
There's something to be said too about this passing, I think it sounds like you're giving a passing of using kind of, bigger
I'm saying
language.
there's a place to be
place for it.
provocative.
Yeah. But I think there's something to be said about also using insider language for your marketing. So kind of understanding your target market and kind of how they talk or how they speak or who they are and using that exaggerative language to grab their attention seems to be a winning formula for messaging.
Let's actually also say one thing about the Cards Against Humanity card game for horrible people. They say there's another couple magic words in there besides horrible people, and it's card game.
Yep.
That they actually said what it was. Designed for horrible people probably doesn't work very well.
Yes, yeah.
Cards Against Humanity designed a card game says everybody knows what a card game is. So they say it's this but different.
Yeah, same but different. That's exactly
I talked
right.
about this earlier. That anytime you can have a message that is almost a soundbite or a tagline that is the same but different. For instance, we did an episode on Slate trucks.
Mm-hmm.
The Mr. Potato Head of vehicles is the same. It's a thing that you attach things to, but it's a car. It's a card game, but it's for horrible people, right?
Yeah.
I mean that to me is that's extremely effective. One of the better taglines I think of all time.
Yep.
And it's a game, so it's not like it's a dentist, right?
Yes.
I mean, veneers for horrible people. It doesn't quite have the same
or
ring.
drink for horrible people.
A drink
or
for horrible,
a
gun for horrible people.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Okay, so that
Although I
seems,
think a drink for horrible people might actually
it could
do well
work,
too.
honestly. So I'm going to give that a pass. I hear pass of finding provocative language.
If you don't communicate clearly, all your emails, your website, social media posts, everything you're communicating will be ignored. Storybrand.ai is like the world's best communication expert writing it for you. Imagine having the world's best communicator writing your tagline. Just type in the name of your company, answer a few prompts, and voila. Hey, that's a good one. Use it to write your social media posts, website wireframe, emails, lead generating PDF, product or service descriptions, anything you need for your business. What would happen to your revenue if every word that left your business was crystal clear and worth paying attention to? Storybrand.ai is your competitive advantage, so you'll say it clearly. Try it right now and let us write your custom tagline for free at Storybrand.ai. And now back to the show.
Topic number 3 is there's a new trend going on. It's called EGC versus UGC. Now, let me explain what
I have no idea. I've never heard of this.
EGC is employee-generated content versus the traditional user-generated content in your marketing.
Okay.
So, blunt reaction, pass or fail using more employee-generated content versus user-generated content. Is that a good idea?
Oh, no, you can't. I mean, I can't pass or fail that, right? Both. Yeah. I mean, employee generated content is, that's what every company is kind of doing. If you have a podcast, it's employee generated content.
Okay. So then let me bring it down a little bit.
Yeah.
Which one builds, you think, more trust then? Do you think it's more peer reviews or kind of more insider employee content?
It's a dance between the both, but definitely user over employee.
Yeah.
Because I will trust an Amazon review more than I'll trust the copy that the company is putting out.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's a product description, I'm probably going to read that. But listen, we all read it with a grain of salt. We know they have a vested interest in this. This person who bought it does not have a vested interest. Listen, I talked to James Clear, spent a weekend with him, and he said that before he wrote Atomic Habits, he actually went and found every book on habits, goal setting, productivity, and printed out the 3-star reviews of every one of those books. Because he said, 5 stars, you love it no matter what. 1 star, you used to date their sister and now they hate you, right? Right? Whatever. There's some sort of personal hatred going on with the 1-star reviews. But 3 stars, he said, indicates I wanted to like this product, but I didn't. And so he made, just like James Clear, he made, sort of a list of everything that people had a legitimate complaint about productivity books. And then he countered that with Atomic Habits.
Yeah.
He made sure that they weren't able to complain about that in his book. And that is the power of sort of user-generated feedback and even product creation. That's the authority that it sort of gives. I'm rambling here, but I think that if I read something from a user, it gives much more authority on whether or not I'm going to like or enjoy the product than it does by the person who works for the company.
There also seems to be a distinguishing factor here because sometimes I think employee-generated content can lean into the wrong problem that the product is trying to solve.
Right.
Versus user-generated. So the James Clear analogy is good because if an employee or someone on his team was trying to find out what the market needed, they might not be hearing it as much as the user themselves who are experiencing the problem that then he's trying to solve with a book.
Right.
So it feels like if you could kind of get in missing the mark a little bit on some of the content because it's very easy to kind of get caught up in the, in your own world as you're making employee-generated stuff. Did you see that campaign though recently where the intern was like, "Hey, if I don't get X amount of followers, I get fired"?
I've only heard about it. Can you explain it to our listeners?
You probably shouldn't have brought it up because I don't have a ton of info on it. I just remember there was a campaign. I think it was like in the fall of last year.
Yeah.
Where there's this social media campaign where basically this girl was saying, "Hey, I'm on an internship. My boss has said I can have a job if I get so many likes or so many follows on this post. I'm sure someone is listening to this right now is like, it's this campaign,
Yeah.
So leave a comment so we can go watch it. But basically they embrace this kind of employee generated content to advertise their product and then crowdsourced out to keep her job. And they put in, she had a name.
I heard it didn't have anything to do with the product, though.
Really? Okay. See,
is
that's
that true?
I thought it had something to do with the brand or
Maybe
something around that. But basically it took a massive life of its own.
Let's analyze that.
Yeah.
What that did was created a story loop.
Okay.
It opened a story loop and it gave the audience, the body politic, power over whether or not something happens that's quite urgent. This woman's going to lose her job unless we all do X.
Yeah.
And that is always going to be enticing.
Yeah.
When you hand the customers or the masses power, it's a dunk tank, right? You get to dunk this person or not dunk this person or whatever. And that's always going to generate a lot of interest.
Yes.
And I'm sure that this young woman, I haven't seen it, but was quite winsome and fun and that sort of thing. Actually, true story, I used to own the website SaveTheKitten.com.
Okay.
I was writing a book called Maze Boy. It was a piece of fiction. One of the things that Maze Boy did was he had a crush on this girl who really cared about an issue. And so he got a kitten and he put the kitten in a slingshot headed toward an attic fan. And he released it and said, if you don't give $1 million to this girl's charity, I'm going to kill this cat. And he used Save the Kitten to do it. And what I was going to do is when I released the novel, I was actually going to get a looping video of this kitten in a slingshot heading toward the action fan. And every month I was going to put a new actual nonprofit up there. So every month we would raise money.
Yeah.
And of course, there's never any cat.
Yeah.
I don't know where this story,
I told the story. Idea how we are where we're at. But
except what it does is it opens a story loop.
Yes.
And it gives the people control, and also quite provocative.
Yes.
Right? I mean, like people would be up in arms. Yeah. And meanwhile, it's a looping video of 15 seconds, right? Nothing happened to the cat. But now I get it as a story on the podcast. But the idea is like, well, check several boxes, brings a lot of attention to something. Yep. Now, if you were the nonprofit and you did that, forget it. I mean, you're done. But if you're like, Banksy, and you're doing that, and you're trying to channel money, it brings a lot of attention to human trafficking and whatever you want to bring attention to. So opens a story loop. Something bad is going to happen unless you take action.
Stakes.
And that's what this gal did, and that's why that worked.
Yep. Okay, so I'd be curious. Like, some point off this would be business owners or brands or whoever's listening to this. How would you advise them on going about generating soliciting user generated, but then also there is a trend going on with employee generated content about what they do or what, there's people here at Storybrand who write on LinkedIn about stuff.
People love reality shows. And so I think if you can do some content that feels like a reality show inside your office, I think it's
seen that work.
It's really fun. It would be fun. Like if we were to do that, we would probably bring like Bren or Dagny or Josh, our marketing guy. Cooper's one of our producers who's really smart. How fun would it be to do like a Beat Bobby Flay thing to see if like the three of them can come up with better messaging than me?
Than you? Yeah.
Now you got an underdog.
Yes.
And sadly, I would probably be the villain as a 53-year-old man, and their boss. Nobody likes the boss. Yeah. The expert. And how fun would that be?
And then have the audience vote.
And have the audience
include
vote.
Them in,
and they have to promise to be objective. You can't just vote against Don.
And there has to be some stakes with some money or something like that.
There you go. We literally just created
a show.
We created employee generated content that feels like a reality show and has stakes. We just created it right here. We're not going to do it because they're going to beat me. But we know I got to solidify my.
What would be the?
I think in terms of user, if you have anything in which you could show. If you could say to your customers, send us a 15-second video of how you use this product. If you have anything like that, send it to us. Now, you need to do quality control and, edit it and put bumpers on it and things like that. But that could be really great examples of user-generated content. I mean, I just bought a $150 knife sharpener from one of our customers. Our customers.
Warthog?
Yeah. Warthog. And, how fun would it be for them? They've got my email address. They've got my mailing address. Email us a video of you sharpening your knife and then cutting something.
Mm-hmm.
And here's this dramatically increases the chance we'll use it. Keep it to under 15 seconds. Only sharpen the knife. Only show the last time, and then show what you're cutting with it.
Yep.
And if we like it, we'll tag you. Give us a way that we can tag you.
Yep.
What a great friggin' idea.
That's right.
And then every day you could actually post that.
Yeah.
Right. Let's say that you create wraps for cars. You might say to every, car place that does wraps, send us a video of before and after of cars, and then we'll tag your auto body shop in the video when we send it out. Anybody in Nashville would see this and go, okay, I guess that's where I can go get my car wrapped. In fact, I like that color.
Yeah.
And basically we're promoting you while you're promoting our wrap. That's a great example of user-generated content. But, it all has to be, if you're going to come up with a campaign like that, it has to be spelled out very, very clearly. Mm-hmm. There need to sort of be processes and rules around it. And, that way you're not getting garbage, 10-minute videos about how we wrap this car.
Yeah, and I think there's some great examples too. I've seen this done well online where you have, user-generated content. Social media is a natural place for that, for people to submit questions. Yeah. And then you can answer. Yeah. But I've also seen a newer trend where employees in the company are going to the boss or the marketing director, or, that person who's kind of has some authority and asking them a question about, I've seen it like with plastic surgeons, like, should you eat this or should you, use this product? Yes. And it's a good way to include both its user and its employee.
Yeah, yeah.
So, okay, so from a, pass-fail standpoint on what tells
I can't choose between employee or user.
But what tells a better...
Pass.
Okay. I was going to
say...
Employee
and user, pass.
Makes sense.
Yep.
Okay, great.
Listen, if you're not trying to change your culture, don't hire Don Miller.
Thanks for listening to the Why That Worked podcast presented by Storybrand.ai. If you like the show, follow wherever you get your podcasts. And if you're enjoying this on YouTube, hit that subscribe button and leave a comment letting us know what you think and what you want the guys to talk about in a future episode. Curious about how Storybrand.ai can help you create clear, effective messaging? Well, you can try it out right now and create a free customized tagline for your business. Just go to Storybrand.ai. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.